Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. And do we have a lot to talk about today as we're cruising inside 3 weeks before the midterm elections? And man, oh man, do we have a ton of things to talk about. The blowback from the Kavanaugh hearings. We've got the situation with President Trump basically alienating women. We've got the situation where President Trump wrote an op-ed in USA Today, basically lying the entire time about what Medicaid for all would be. Basically, it's just another week in Washington. But I can't think of anyone I'd like to share that week with more than, of course, our good friend, Alan Steinberg. Alan, welcome as always, my friend. Your thoughts on what is going on as we get closer to the midterms?
Okay, the first one I'll take is the congressional races. I think that post-Kavanaugh, the outlook is as follows. I think in the red states, Kavanaugh controversy has generated momentum for Republican challengers of Democrats holding those seats. So I think it makes it very difficult for Democrats to gain control of the Senate. However, in the House races, and don't forget this, going back a second, the Senate races are somewhat idiosyncratic. They are local contests based upon the character of the states that they're in. However, in the House races, which are more reflective of the president's national popularity or unpopularity, Trump has made no comeback at all. In fact, Kavanaugh had the effect of turning the gender gap, the huge edge that women now enjoy among Democrats, into a veritable ocean gap. It really is wide right now. And I think as a result of which, you're going to see the Democrats capture around 60 seats in the House of Representatives. And then the story post-election becomes a real constitutional crisis between the parties.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, but the Democrats, I think a lot of people keep telling me, well, the moment the Democrats, these are Republicans, are telling me that, well, the day that they get in the office, they're going to try to impeach Trump, and then they're going to try to impeach Kavanaugh. I'm like, whoa. I've gone out, and of the, at one point it was 84, it's now I think 70, quote unquote, toss-up states. I've spoken to 57 candidates. I have yet to find one of those 57 candidates whose first thing on the agenda is impeaching Trump or going after Kavanaugh. Everybody is talking about local issues. They have nothing to do with what is going on with either the impeachment of the president or the impeachment of the recently, confirmed Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, I don't think the Democrats have to even go there on impeachment. They can benefit just from Trump's unpopularity without indicating any predisposition to impeach or not to impeach. The big thing for the Democrats down the stretch is, number one, the health care issue.
Right.
That's an issue where Republicans are really in bad shape. Health care is the third rail of American politics because every proposal has winners or losers. That was the political problem with Obamacare, and that's the problem with Trump's nothing care, so to speak. But the other difficulty, and this is a surprise to many people, it's not a surprise to me, is that there's very ominous economic news. Right now, you had the stock market going down today by an additional 500-plus points. I think there are two reasons for that. I think number one is the rise in interest rates. I'm not just talking about the Fed. I'm talking about the Treasury, which in order to finance a $1 trillion deficit has to sell bonds with increasing yields. And I think that is going to add on to federal budget burdens in the coming years, crowding out almost all new programs, almost all infrastructure. And it's going to make for a real crowding out effect on credit to private business. So I think that the veritable huge downturn in the stock market over the last 2 days is a tribute, number one, to the rising deficits with the consequential interest rate hikes. The number two is the trade war that Trump has going with China. And that is going to cut off a very substantial mutual market between the two countries. And I think that makes the economic outlook somewhat grim. There's been this myth about Trump being the person who accomplished this great economic revival. The fact of the matter is he inherited a good economy. I served in the administration of George W. Bush. I venerate him. But the fact of the matter is, as a result of the market meltdown in September of 2008, the economy was in shambles when Barack Obama took over. And I'm not an Obama supporter per se. I've had my praises of him and criticisms. But on the economy, it has to be said he did a very good job. And he left a strong economy for Trump. It got even stronger. I don't think it was due to anything Trump did. I think it was somewhat of a business cycle matter. But now, due to the Trump policies on trade, due to the tax cut that was totally irresponsible and generated a record deficit, I think the economy is in trouble. And the worse the market is over the next few weeks, the greater the chance the Democrats have to point it out. Post-election, I think the Democrats will have a problem in terms of defining themselves for 2020. They can certainly defeat Donald Trump if he doesn't have to leave office, but they have to define themselves. The gap between the progressive Democrats and mainstream is a big problem, and that's where my focus will be after the election.
I would agree with that. I think that both the Republicans and the Democrats are going to go through an identity crisis post the election of 2018. But not that I'm going to fall back for a minute, but I got a tremendous kick or deja vu, if you will, when Mitch McConnell started this rhetoric about these unruly gangs. My God, I feared for my safety throughout this entire Kavanaugh situation. When I remember one of the only two times I've ever actually been hit and or hurt covering anything was during 2010 when the Tea Party came to town and I got hit 3 times with eggs as they were attempting to aim at different Congress people who were trying to go from one building to, from one office building to the other. And then a few months later at outside an abortion clinic where I got hit with a board that somebody threw. Now, there's 2 problems I have. One, either these protesters get a better arm, or 2, don't tell me that only Democrats protest.
I agree with you 100%, and I think that I'm a very disenchanted Republican right now. I am not going to join the Democratic Party. I don't agree with their philosophies in terms of social spending, but I'm just about out the door on the Republicans. I really this week I get appalled by Trump every week, worse and worse. Right. I never can believe the new heights of anti-Trumpism I attain. But this week, when he encouraged the crowd to yell, "Lock her up," when it comes to Dianne Feinstein, I said, here's a man who encourages, or at least fantasizes about the possibility of incarcerating his opponents. That's fascism. It's fascism when you encourage attacks on the media. I don't think but one person I do have to criticize on the Democrat side. I agree with you with McConnell. I think that both parties can get out of hand with demonstrations. But there's one person I really find fault with, and that's Cory Booker. When he talks about how you have to confront these people, that encourages violence. I think that Ted Cruz, when he goes to dinner in Washington, should not have to deal with demonstrators blocking the way of Ted and his wife to the dinner table. There is a certain zone of privacy that legislators and members of the executive branch are entitled to. And I think in the case of Booker, there isn't a lot of substance there. The real substance, the person in the Democrat Party who is on what I call the Star Track, who encourages me and who I think has a lot of substance is Kamala Harris. I think she's terrific. But Booker doesn't have her substance, so he encourages drama all the time, but his drama can have a terrible effect. Right now, I'm looking at both parties and the effect of their demonstrators, and I'm not happy. I think this country, the social fabric, is being rent. I think the primary party responsible for that is Donald Trump.
Well, I think that, look, a pox on both their houses, okay? I do not, under any circumstances, would I condone, as much as I'm not a fan of Ted Cruz, there's no reason why Ted Cruz, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, anybody who goes out to dinner with their family should be in any way, shape, or form heckled and or given grief. I've said the same thing 100 times before to people who have come up to me and said, look, I might be in the same restaurant with Derek Jeter, right? And someone will say, well, should I go? You think I can go up and ask him for an autograph? I said, look, if you're at Yankee Stadium, or if you see him in an airport, if you see him in the parking lot, ask him. But don't go up and ask him during, having a meal. I mean, people have family time. You don't want to encroach on that family time. And look, if I have disagreements, and you and I have been in restaurants where we know the people that we've had disagreements with because they're sitting 60 feet away, okay? It doesn't mean that I'm going to go over there during, the person's meal and harass them. It's just not going to happen. There is a civility level, which I swear to God, I hope I still have, to be able to know what time and what place I can have that disagreement with somebody, but certainly not in front of their family and certainly not in front of an entire restaurant or stadium or wherever the heck it might be.
The furthest I will go if I see somebody in a restaurant having a meal, if it is a person that I feel negative towards, I won't even approach them. I won't go near them.
Right.
If it is a person I feel positive towards, I might go by the table and say, way to go, keep it up, we're proud of you, and then leave. But I won't ask for an autograph. I will simply pass along the positive comment. And this has worked for me. People I've seen in restaurants who are famous or notables, they appreciate that. They don't want to be bothered with autographs while they're eating.
Right. We'll be back with more after this. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84. But at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/my name, Williams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy, but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I have 6 nieces, okay, and 1 nephew. I find it hard to think that there's aggrieved white men out there who are going to be wrongly accused of sexual harassment.
Well, I'll tell you my take on Kavanaugh. I started off, I'm a judicial strict constructionist who believes that judges should not legislate from the bench. Mm-hmm. I was a follower of Antonin Scalia. For that reason, I started off as a supporter of the Kavanaugh nomination, and I wrote an article in support. I started turning against him before the revelations of sexual impropriety, sexual assault mm-hmm. came out, because I thought at his hearings he was totally evasive, and that really bothered me. That contrasts with Neil mm-hmm. Gorsuch, who I thought was rather forthcoming and did well at his hearing, and people may disagree with his judicial philosophy, but I thought that he conducted himself rather well. I didn't think that of Brett Kavanaugh. When the news came out about the allegations of sexual assault on the part of Dr. Ford, my first reaction was, well, she should be heard and there should be a real full investigation, not mm-hmm. the phony one that took place. But then when I heard her testify, I said, this woman's telling the truth, and that's when I opposed the nomination. So I went through various stages. What worries me about Kavanaugh is, and this really sealed the deal on my feelings towards him, I served in the Bush administration where he was very well regarded. Mm-hmm. But when he gave his speech in response to the morning testimony of Dr. Ford, right, it was one of the most inappropriate speeches I ever heard in front of a Senate committee or Senate in general, because it had such a partisan tone, which is inappropriate, and such an intemperate tone, which is totally wrong for a judge to have. I said to myself, this man may be a brilliant jurist, but he's not fit for the court. And even after he was nominated, there was something about his inauguration speech that bothered me. There was a certain edge to it. There was not any note of reconciliation. And I have this feeling that he is going to be somewhat vindictive and vengeful, and that scares me.
Well, I on the day he was confirmed, I was on a radio show, and they said, well, do you fear him as, someone who didn't support him? And I said, no. I don't like that he's there because I don't think he deserved it, but this is still John Roberts' court. And I said, just like presidents, speakers of the House, Senate majority leaders, senators, anybody who's ever elected to office, they have they want a legacy. And I can assure you that despite being conservative, if it takes John Roberts' vote to go on the liberal side to save something because Brett Kavanaugh has gone off the rails, I think that John Roberts will do it, not because John Roberts wants to, but because John Roberts wants the integrity of the court to stay above politics. And
well, I agree with you on that. And let me take that one step further, because you hit a point where I am so in agreement with you. I just did an article on this post-Kavanaugh, and I talked about the outlook. I talked about in the context of two cases, Roe versus Wade, and also in terms of the holding that approved that basically mandated the right of same-sex marriage throughout the country.
Yeah, by the way, that was a great article. Please plug it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But my point was this. Stare decisis does apply in the case and almost everyone would agree with it, in the case of Roe versus Wade. It's very settled law now after over 30 it's over 40 years now,
right?
Since 1973. Roberts is a person of precedent, and he is not going to overturn that ruling. He's not going to do it, which makes the next Supreme Court appointment very decisive, because both Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Sonia Sotomayor have health problems. So this next appointment, in terms of abortion, may be the most important one yet, because that could be the fifth vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. Right now, even though there are 5 conservative jurists, I don't think Roberts will support a reversal of that case. But the case involving same-sex marriage is different. That holding is only 2 years old.
That's the one, just for those of you out there following along in your handbooks, that's the 2015 Obergefell versus Hodges. U.S.
Yes,
Supreme
the
Court
Obergefell, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Obergefell decision. That decision has not yet reached the stage. It's only 3 years old. It hasn't and I'm not saying this against the holding in the case. I'm not saying that to be critical. But Roberts could easily find a basis for reversing that case and overturning any doctrine of stare decisis, in that it's only 3 years old, and it's hard to claim reliance by the affected parties on that decision. So I think he may well vote to reverse the Obergefell case. I think he may well vote to do that. I think the gay population in this country is now a major target of the evangelical movement, and they're going to have legal problems going forward. I am not a gay person myself, but I'm very sympathetic to what they've had to go through. Now, one could question Obergefell. I wrote an article back in, I believe it was in 2010. I wrote an article where I favored allowing states, and I said the Republican Party ought to do this, that states should be allowed to permit gay marriage. I favored that route because I didn't see anything in the Constitution that would give the court basis one way or other to rule on gay marriage. Now, Justice Kennedy, who knows the law, knows precedent much better than I, felt differently. And he ruled in favor of a right of same-sex marriage, which I preferred to reach legislatively and state by state. But that's okay. I'm glad now that gays in America, the LGBT community, does have that option. I'm happy for that. But I think that that is the one you've got to look out for. And that's one where Roberts may be the fifth vote for reversal.
That would be sad because the LGBTQ community has been absolutely and totally almost an outward attempt to dismantle everything that has been done over the years of in progress for them by Vice President Pence and his Bible thumping situation. I am a strong supporter of the church staying out of the state, and unfortunately, that is not what Reverend Pence, the Vice President of the United States, seems to think. He seems to think that if you don't believe the way he believes, well, then you are not right. And therefore, he is basically, and this is something that's flying well under the radar, and you are very perceptive to pick up the legal case on it, is that he is rolling back so many different, not laws, but let's just say practices that the government had protected, that is really putting the LGBTQ community as well as women's reproductive rights all in a very, very rough situation. I mean, you look right now on the women's reproductive situation, in the state of Missouri, there's only one abortion clinic. That's insane.
Well, I think it's clear that the gender gap between men and women is now, I think, permanent. I think the Democrats are going to have a big edge among women voters for the next few decades. But the LGBT, phenomenon is a new one because that community is not small, and they can have an effect in close elections in various states. And I think that in terms of these Senate races, if you have a close race, they may make the difference. So that's something to look out for in campaign 2018.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the areas that I think really does get glossed over that we should chat about here is also voter suppression. There's a lot of that going on out there. As a matter of fact, the governor of Georgia right now, who is not the governor for Georgia, the gentleman who's in charge of the state elections is running against, he's running for governor, and he's the person who is looking into 53,000 disenfranchised voters because there's misspellings of names, or they didn't hyphenate a name or something like that. And, so they're disproportionately black. So therefore, those 53,000 people who think they're registered voters who are going to show up to vote and find out, guess what? You're not registered.
It is a scary phenomenon, and I think that the right to vote is one that should be facilitated. It's basic to an economy, and unless you have, it's basic to the democracy, I should say. Mm-hmm. And unless you have some strong basis for excluding a voter on the basis of fraud, regardless of misspellings, regardless of clerical errors, he or she should be granted their franchise, their right to vote. Mm-hmm. That is a scary phenomenon. It's used against members of the African American community more than anything else. And this is a right that people have died for. This is a right that was the real focus of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. I remember so very well the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which at long last gave African Americans the right of equal access to public accommodations. But at the time, Martin Luther King felt very strongly that they would not yet have the leverage to really achieve equality until their right to vote was guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was something that people at Selma, Alabama gave their lives for and their physical well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed, that was the big one. That was the one that was a quantum leap for African-American citizens. So, yes, you're right. Voter suppression is something that concerns me very, very much. This is a very difficult time.
Yeah.
I cannot look down the road and feel too optimistic. I think that the national cultural war is going to continue. I think that I look at families, and so many families I know that may have had differences between Republican and Democratic Party members.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being literal about this. Family members are not talking to each other because of Donald Trump. I have never seen a more polarizing figure in my lifetime.
It's amazing. To your point, Frank Visco is a name that some may know. You may know, you may not. You don't have to know it. Frank Visco is famous because what he does is he, for many years, was one of the power brokers in the Republican Party in California. It was Frank who talked then Ronald Reagan into running for governor. It was Frank who then talked Ronald Reagan and eventually into running for president. And he has, for many, many years, remained a power broker out in the state of California, and to this day remains a very strong member of the California Republican group. And I talked to Frank recently, and I said to Frank, what is the biggest problem that the Republicans face? And he thought for a moment, and he said, we really haven't done anything in recent times to really get ourselves involved in the Hispanic community, the Black community. And he goes, we're really a very white party. And he goes, and we are coming at this way late. And I'm not sure we've got the candidates, at this time who are going to attract anybody other than white men and frankly, some older white women.
I think he's right. I think he's right. When the odd thing about it is when the Republicans were more ideologically conservative, Donald Trump is not an ideologue. Donald Trump is not a conservative. Donald Trump is a proto-fascist autocrat. He doesn't believe, as conservatives do, in venerating institutions like Edmund Burke did. He doesn't really believe in a free market economy like Adam Smith did. He is an opportunistic fraud. Ronald Reagan was a traditional conservative, but when you had the Reagan era, you had a lot of intellectual activity going on. And that intellectual activity also encompassed the notion that Republicans should reach out to minority groups. You had people like Thomas Sowell, who was an African American. Mm-hmm. People could agree or disagree with him, but he was a powerful voice for the recruitment of African Americans into the Republican Party. You had Hispanic leaders as well. It seemed that ideological fermentation went hand in hand with racial outreach. But you don't have this with Donald Trump. Steve Bannon is not an intellectual. He's an anti-intellectual. So is Donald Trump. These people have a total disdain for intellectualism. These people want to eliminate certain curricula from our universities, including gender studies. Mm-hmm. This is the most anti-intellectual administration I've seen, and I think the refusal to branch out into minority communities goes hand in glove with that.
The other thing I asked Frank was if he thought that Ronald Reagan could get elected president in these in these times, and he reluctantly said maybe. And I said, he said, I can give you a firm maybe. And we kind of laughed, but, I don't think so. I'm interested in your take on that.
as to whether a Republican can get elected with the support of the minority community?
No. The point I was making is, I said I asked him if Ronald Reagan, the guy who he sherped all the way from governor through to president, if Reagan, were a candidate today running for the presidency, could a Ronald Reagan win? And
I think he could be elected.
My point was, and his answer was a maybe. He goes, I can give you a firm maybe.
I think he could be elected. I'm not sure he would be nominated.
That's my point.
I think Trump is a cancer that has infected the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party's in decline, numerically and otherwise. But Trump has a larger and larger percentage of that declining party. Republicans who dare stand against him, like Ben Sasse of Nebraska, someone I admire very much, he doesn't seem to be establishing any strong foothold, any strong base. John Kasich is another one. He could oppose Trump in a primary. I don't think he can win. It is amazing the hold that Trump has on the Republican Party. I don't think he will be reelected. That is if he survives the Mueller probe. But he definitely is in control of the Republican Party, and that control is likely to remain with the Trumpists after the Donald leaves. Yeah,
but then where do you go? I mean, I'm confused at that point. I mean, is somebody like a Jim Jordan or a Mark Meadows, or who steps in and takes up that moniker? Because frankly, you've got Ron DeSantis in Florida running against Andrew Gillum, and he's got nothing. I mean, he's got no plan for anything. Go ahead.
What you're telling me, and I agree with you, is that the lunatics are taking over the asylum.
Yeah.
Simply put, Jim Jordan would be a catastrophe as Speaker of the House of Representatives. He would be a vindictive lunatic. DeSantis is totally unfit for statewide office, totally. And he doesn't have the intellectual depth. He doesn't have the character. He would be a catastrophe. But that's what's taken over the Republican Party. If you're a William F. Buckley type of person, the Republican Party has no place for you. And even after Trump departs, I think that these notions that he has put in, the notion that it's great to think of incarcerating your opponent, lock her up, this is proto-fascist rhetoric. The idea that the press is your enemy, that's proto-fascist rhetoric. That rhetoric is going to stay. He has ingrained it there. He is a super salesperson selling a very toxic product.
Let's talk about, you're talking about journalists. We've got a situation here where the Saudis just might have assassinated a Washington Post journalist who was an American citizen.
If he was assassinated by the Saudis, there's no doubt that the orders came from above, from MBS. And if we find out that that was the case, it would be proper to label him as criminal prince MBS. I think it's disgraceful that he has this friendship with Jared Kushner. I think that there has to be an immediate investigation, and Republicans may go along with this in the Senate and House. I don't think Jared Kushner is that popular among them. But there's got to be an investigation as to what role the friendship between the Donald, the hidden genius, as Nikki Haley called him, Jared Kushner, that goes down as the funniest remark of the week. And Prince MBS, we have to find this out. Because if as a result of that friendship, the White House failed to inform, if they failed to inform Khashoggi of the danger facing him, then that was criminal neglect. That was ultra criminal neglect, and that's something that for which people should lose their jobs in office, and for which the people endangered, like the Khashoggi family, may be entitled to some recompense.
So, Alan, what are you working on?
I'm covering all the congressional races. and the U.S. Senate race. Now, New Jersey on election night may be the first indication as to how the nation's going to go in the House races. Right now, the Democrats have 5 seats, and the Democrats have 7 seats, and the Republicans have 5 seats. There is a real danger to the Republicans that they will only have 1 seat when the night is over. Now, in the 2nd district, Jeff Andrew is a cinch for election. He will basically take the seat presently held by a good friend of mine, Republican Frank Lobiondo, who's not running for re-election. That leaves 3 other seats. If the Democrats take one of those seats, that's an indication nationwide that they'll take 30 seats. If they take 2 of those seats, that's an indication that they'll take 50 seats. If they take all 3 of them, we could be headed towards a Democrat pickup of 60 seats nationwide. So it's going to be interesting. Now, Bob Menendez, who has had allegations of ethical violation, he started off in a tough position, but his opponent, Bob Eugen, is a person with some baggage of his own in that, and he's a very poor candidate. His baggage is that basically, as the CEO of Celgene, he was selling a cancer drug for $600 a tablet that only costs $1 to make. Pharmaceutical executives are not terribly popular in this election. So I think Menendez is going to win. And not only that, Menendez was unequivocally against Kavanaugh, whereas Eugen tried to play all sides of the street before he had no room for withdrawal, and he ended up supporting the nomination. And Kavanaugh, as a nominee, is very unpopular in New Jersey. So I think Menendez is in pretty good shape. But it's going to be a very interesting election night in New Jersey. Hopefully you and I will talk about that again before Election Day.
Yeah, I figured that what we would do is an election special, and we would go through state and figure out where things go. Right now, the number is 23. 23 Democrats win, and they take control of the House.
And I think that's almost a definite. I really do. I think the Democrats are in solid shape there. But in the Senate, I think Republicans are going to keep control. The year for the Democrats in the Senate will be 2020. That year, a lot of vulnerable Republicans are up for re-election, and that's the year where the Democrats can make their most effective challenge. But it's going to be an interesting election, Jim. This one has totally engrossed my attention.
Well, I know that, there's always a lot of hyperbole, and God knows in politics these days, it happens almost on an hourly basis. But I do honestly believe that this is probably one of the most important midterm elections that we've had, certainly in the last, half decade, I will say.
I think it's even more than that. I have said over and over, to use an FDR phrase, again and again and again, I think Donald Trump really poses a danger to our constitutional liberties, to the social fabric of this nation. He has to be repudiated, and these midterm elections are a chance to begin that process.
Special thanks to our guest, the one, the only, Alan Steinberg. We'll be back with more of the Politically Incorrect podcast after these messages. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama, to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84, but at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/my name, Williams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy, but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. Welcome back, everybody. Now, if you're not yet one of the over 50,000 people who have taken the opportunity to download and subscribe to our podcast, well, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we sure make it simple to do. All right. So go on out to the iTunes store because we are very pleased to be part of the Apple Podcast family. Or you can go to Google Play. How about Blog Talk Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio? Any one of those will get you there. Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, and of course, YouTube, just to name a few. All you have to do, search The Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams and hit the favorite button or the subscribe button, and each week you will get a brand new edition of the show sent directly to your tablet, to your phone, or hopefully to both, okay? So please do that. We would greatly appreciate having you as part of our family. Okay, next week, We're going to be about 2 weeks out from the midterms. What does a celebrity endorsement mean, if anything at all? Well, our guest next week is Shelley Saltman. He is legendary. He is a man who has been both a promoter and someone who's managed some of the top stars in the business, from Jackie Gleason to Muhammad Ali, from Billie Jean King to his longtime business partner, Andy Williams. He spanned over 7 decades of promotion and started as a young kid and is still going in his 80s. So we're going to be talking to the iconic Shelley Saltman about celebrity endorsements next week right here, okay? Special thanks to our buddy who will be joining us as we close in on the midterms. The final week, we're going to be doing a couple of podcasts. That, of course, being Alan J. Steinberg. So thanks to Alan for joining us today, and look forward to going down the stretch with Alan as we do 2 podcasts in that upcoming week just prior to the midterms. All right, so keep a lookout for that too. All right, y'all have a wonderful week. For everybody from the Politically Incorrect Podcast, I'm Jim Williams, wishing you a safe and enjoyable week. Until next time, when we have Shelley Saltman with us, take care.